heart delight, and I am placing you higher.
Hey, it's Rory. You're listening to my mom's podcast, All Things Good. Grab a coffee as she dives into real conversation with friends in Jesus. It may look all bad right now, but Romans 8:28 says he works it together for your good. Cheers!
Hey friend, it's Alissa Holt, and if you don't know, my brand new book, I Win, Faith Ain't Fair, It's a Fight, is available today. But here's the deal. You've reached out, you said you're using this book in women's groups, small groups, and you want more resources, so I created a 5-week online coaching course just for you. And what I've done here is created it to where you can do it individually or with groups. You can utilize it for Wednesday night services, for women's groups, men's groups, youth groups, all the groups. Everybody can relate to this book, and the investment is cram-packed, full of goodies. This is what I've included in it, okay? You get the physical copy of the book. You get the audio copy of the book, which nobody gets except for those doing this course. You get 5 weeks of online coaching videos to take you through the book, and it's paired with my resource pages and journaling pages to really help you dig your heels into your faith fight. I'm going to add you to an exclusive group online where you can meet with the community all over the nation, talking about the book and what we are learning, praying for each other, and then I will meet with you once a week on Zoom call to really dissect what we are learning and how we are empowering ourselves with the Word of God. Listen, at the end of the 5 weeks, I'm going to gift you with an exclusive I Win t-shirt. And for those of you who don't like wearing pink, I've got you covered too. This is going to celebrate the fact that you completed the course. And if you're purchasing this as a group, reach out to me. I have bulk orders for your books that I will quote you a price at a discounted price to help you. And if you need more than one t-shirt, we can do the same. Reach out to me. February 3rd, we are kicking this group off. Don't miss out. AlissaHolt.com. Enroll today. Tell your pastors, tell your friends, tell your family. Get in on this. What a great way to start out 2025 with a winning spirit. You win because Jesus already won. How in the world can you lose? Let's do this together. I hope to see you there. Go check it out on the website. Well, welcome back. I am so excited for today's episode. I actually just got out of intercession prayer call with my crew this morning. And man, if you think that prayer calls on Tuesday mornings on my social media, if you tune into those, by the way, it's on Facebook. I'm going to start streaming to Instagram as well, but I also post them on my YouTube. I post all the replays. If you think those are good, hold on tight, okay? Because when you get involved in the crew, we just go in, and it's almost like every Wednesday morning, the Lord just has an on-time, specific word for us that just comes out of nowhere, and it hits us like a ton of bricks. Today was that day. And I want to share something with you that came out of that intercession time. So I told the crew, I said, y'all heard this first, but it was so good. And I think so many of us are right there in the grip of this thing. We're in the midst of the thing. Okay, what is the thing we're talking about? Waiting. Waiting on God to facilitate the answer that we've been praying for. I want to ask you before we even get started, what is the thing that you've been praying for? What is the thing you've been needing? What is the thing that you've been hoping and wishing that God would facilitate on your behalf? Listen, we all have it. If you're living the perfect life, I'm going to say it again, buckle up, because life comes to hit us when we least expect it, okay? It doesn't even just come to hit us, it comes to knock us fully out. And if we are not fully ready in faith and prepared with the Word of God and with Jesus, we are going to get knocked all the way down. Okay, ask me how. I know. I've had to practice what I preach, and it's so funny because the more you preach something, that is the specific thing that the enemy is going to come to challenge your belief system on. And so when I say I have practiced this standing in faith, fighting in faith, just like my new book, I Win, Faith Ain't Fair, It's a Fight, I'm telling you, I've lived it. I'm still living it. I will continue to live it till the day I die because the faith fight does not end. But my question is, what are you asking for? What are you believing for? What are you standing in the gap for? What are you fighting for? What are you trusting in the Lord for? Because if you don't know what that thing is, it's going to be really hard to receive what you don't know, right? And I think that so many times we have this misconception that, well, God knows all of the things that I need, so why do I need to pray about it? Prayer is not for him. Okay, we've got to get some bad teaching right. Okay, so let's start here. Prayer is not for God. Prayer is for you, boo-boo. Prayer is not to convince God for him to do something that his word says he will do for us. Prayer is to convince me that his word is true. Prayer is to change my mind. Prayer is to change my heart. Prayer is to change my perception. Prayer is to help me believe that God is the God of the Bible. It's not to convince God to be the God of the Bible. It's not to convince God that you're worth it. It's not to convince God that I am worth it. Listen, you weren't worth it. You never will be worth it. In your eyes. That's the key. Your eyes. There is always going to be something that disqualifies you. The cool thing about our God is that Jesus got on a cross before we ever had a chance to prove ourselves as worthy, and he chose us. Before we ever had a chance to be clean, in our filth, he chose us. Before we ever had a chance to choose him, he chose us. And so in your eyes, you're never going to be worthy. You're always going to be disqualified. But in his eyes, he said yes. My husband always said it this way: you're not dirty and distant, you're clean and close. And so when we're looking at what we're standing in the gap for, when we're looking at what we're praying for, what we're believing for, we've got to remember that prayer is not for God. Prayer is for us because Jesus already did it on the cross. The word says the cross is a finished work. A finished work. If something's finished, it's finished, right? Finished means done. Done means come get it, right? If I'm done with a project, if I have a project to do and I call my person and I say, hey, it's finished, right? Like my producer, when he had my music and he was finishing everything and he called and he said, hey, it's finished. It's in your email. What did I have to do? I had to open that email and click my links to receive what was finished. Why do we think that the finished work of the cross still has work to do? Jesus's work is done. Now we have to receive it. The work is on our side in convincing ourselves that God did what he said he would do. The work is not on his side. So many times we come to God in prayer, begging him to do something, thinking that he still has work to do. This is good word. But prayer is not because he has work to do. Prayer is because we have work to do, to receive the thing that's already been finished. I hope you're catching what I'm throwing out there, okay? We're going to raise a glass. We're already getting into it. But here's the deal. So many of us are waiting for a working that's already done. And so we get stuck and we get stagnant and we get complacent and we get angry and we get bitter and we get tired and we get exhausted because we're over here spinning our wheels on a finished work that's already done and we don't know how to receive it. We don't know how to receive it. I was at a women's conference this last weekend in North Carolina and I told the ladies, I said, if I had your perfect order, everything that you get at Starbucks, okay, so my favorite order is a cold brew, grande cold brew. I get it with almond milk, 2 pumps of stevia, 2 pumps of sugar-free vanilla, and 1 pump of mocha. Okay, I'm bougie. But that is my perfect order. Okay, now if it's fall, that's a whole nother discussion. Okay, but that's my perfect go-to summer, spring order. And it's sitting right here in front of me. Right here in front of me. But I keep on praying and begging God to give me the perfect order, the perfect answer, the perfect thing that I have been needing for my life. But it's already been prepared. It's already been prepared. It's sitting in front of me, but I keep on begging him to prepare it, begging him to give it to me. People would literally look at me like I am crazy and tell me, Alissa, it's right there, Alissa. Receive it. All you got to do is grab it. It's right there. All you got to do is partake in it, right? I think that that's how God looks at us sometimes, because we're down here like, God, we need the perfect answer. We need the perfect this. We need the perfect that. And he's like, I gave you the perfect sacrifice on a cross. It's right there. It's already been prepared. It's already been solidified. It's already been done. It's already been written about. It's already been published. It's the most published book in the world. But you're not receiving it. You got to receive it. It's right in front of you, right? And so I want to come back to the question that I started with. What is it that you're praying for? Second question is, are you waiting because you have been wanting God to do the work? Or are you waiting in obedience in the working of your faith to believe that God did what he said he would do, and now you are waiting out the receiving of it? Do you hear what I'm saying? Does this make sense? I hope it does. I was talking to my ladies this morning. I said there's a difference between waiting in this stance. I'm waiting on God to do the work and he's not doing the work. And there's a difference in waiting in this stance. God, I surrender to you. I know the finished work of the cross has already been done. And now I am activating the working of my faith as I wait for the full manifestation of that thing. I'm surrendering. I'm not stuck in my waiting. I'm surrendering in my waiting. Those are two different postures in your prayer life. Okay? You have got to acknowledge the posture of your prayer life, friend, when it comes to receiving the thing that God says is yours. When I was an active full-time worship leader, especially in Texas, I pastored there for 7 years with my parents. There's something that I asked my worship team every single time we got on stage. We never got on stage without praying first. We prayed every single morning back behind stage. And then I would ask them, what's the posture of your heart? Is your heart surrendered? Is it bowed? Or is your heart proud? Stuck. If you're stuck in your stance to be right, you are proud. But if you're surrendered, you're bowed. Right? And I would tell my team, I don't need a bass player. I don't need a drummer. I don't need a guitar player. I don't need vocalists. All of those things are nice, but they do not bring in the presence of God. Okay? And if you get on my stage with a bad attitude, because the Lord has given me the responsibility to steward this stage well and who is on the stage, you are going to pour out from the place that you are sitting in. So everybody in the room is going to feel your bad attitude. And these are things that worship teams don't teach on anymore because we're so much about performance and all of the flashy camera lights, action, best vocalists, best musicians. We've got people that are literally not even Christians on the stage that are being paid every morning to lead us into worship. And they don't even know a life of worship. They don't even know what that is. That's a whole nother sermon, okay? But that is something I challenge my team with all the time. Is your heart bowed or is your heart proud? Because you're not getting on the stage until you fix it. If you're not willing to fix it, you're not stepping on the stage. And I think that's a daily thing we ought to all ask ourselves every morning. Is my heart bowed in surrender, or is it proud by being stuck? Because my prayers are not going to make progress if I'm not partnering with God. Do you hear what I'm saying? prayer is not to convince God, it's to convince me. So there is no progress if I'm staying right here in my right to be right. That doesn't make progress. You are permanently sticking yourself in a situation where God cannot move. But a prayer that has progress is a partnership. God, I want to move with you. I'm not stuck in my waiting. I'm surrendered in my waiting. I am bowed in my waiting. I am seeing that it's my work of my faith, the work of my faith. Faith without works is what? Dead. Okay? So I got to do something to get something. Jesus already did. See, Jesus had to do something for you to get something. So you got to do something to receive something, right? Partnership. In a marriage, if I did everything and my husband didn't do anything, there would be an issue. If he did everything and I did nothing, there would be an issue. It's a partnership. It's a partnership to take care of the family. It's a partnership to make the decisions. It's a partnership to hear the voice of God. It's a partnership to intercede for our family. It's a partnership to love each other correctly. When one person is not doing their job, it becomes conflicting. And God is always doing his job. So if it's not working and it's conflicting, you've always got to self-evaluate right here. Because the cross has already been finished. The work has already been completed. Jesus already did what he said he would do. The word has been given. So if there's a conflicting thing, then I've got to self-evaluate where I'm at. And it comes back to my prayers. Are my prayers looking at God to do the work, or am I working my faith to convince me that it's already done? It is finished. That's what Jesus said on the cross, right? I told my ladies this morning, I said, I was actually praying about a month and a half ago. I was here in the living room and I was praying for me and my girls, okay? Answers that we needed, things that we needed to see happen. My perfect order that I talked about earlier, right? My perfect order. I wrote it out, written it down in my journal. I presented it to God, right? And I was talking to him about these things. And Lord, how do I come about this? And in my waiting, in my surrendering to him in that moment, because I had set aside some time where I was really fasting and interceding for the girls and I, the Lord began to give me the answer for someone else. Don't you love it when that happens? When you're needing a thing, you're needing an answer, you're needing breakthrough, you're needing wisdom and revelation, all of a sudden the Lord will come to help you facilitate the answer for someone else's prayer. It's very testing to where you're at in your relationship with God. And he began to give me a word for a specific person. He said, I want you to sit and pray for them. And I sat and prayed for them. And he said, I want you to call them and give them this word. And immediately I didn't want to, because this person is a very well-known, big name in the Christian industry. I was not close with this person. My husband, Alissa Holt, was close with this person, but I had their number because I have his phone. And the Lord said, I want you to call them right now and give them this answer. And in the midst of it, I said, but God, I'm trying to talk to you about what I need. Like I've written these things down, God. I'm looking in the word for answers. Like I'm here fasting for me. And God literally said to me, in your obedience to be the answer for someone else, that's when I release the answer for you. It's a working of your faith. It's a seed that you are planting in faith that as I obey, God is going to bring mine. Right? And so I did exactly that. I called that person. And they sat there, they cried, and they said, I just want you to know, this is, you would never know how on time this word is for me. This is on time. This is a now word for me. And I appreciate your obedience. And it was not even a week later that the Lord began to unlock some things for me that were very specific, my perfect order that I was agreeing with the word for, that came into place. Boom, 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 boom. This is what I want to challenge you with today. Do not pray prayers that you are not willing to be the answer for. Because oftentimes the answer you're praying for is the answer that God is going to challenge you to be for other people. And he uses it as an act of faith to get you the fruit, right? So like you've got a field. You don't get fruit in the field by not working the field, right? You've got to go out there and plow it. You've got to go out there and pull up weeds. You've got to go out there and plant seeds. You've got to go out there and water. You've got to go out there and nurture. You've got to go out there and make sure the coons and the deer and the bear and all of the things aren't eating the field. I had to do this stuff with my great-grandparents, right? I know a little bit about it. And there are things that we had to actively do every day to see the fruit come into play. And so, we want to see the answers come into play, but we don't want to work the field with faith to plant the seed. The seed is doing something to get something, right? You do something in faith to receive over and above what God has for you. And so in this instance, I was needing an answer, and God said, hey, would you call up such and such and tell them the answer they've been praying for? As an act of faith, obey me, and I will bring the answer to you. Sometimes the Lord's going to ask you, hey, you're standing in the gap for a financial blessing. You're really struggling, and the Lord says, hey, I want you to sow into that ministry X amount of money. I want you to sow into that family that's struggling X amount of money. I want you to sow into that single mama that's struggling to buy formula for her baby as a seed of faith that I'm going to provide your financial breakthrough. And sometimes it's going to cost you, oftentimes, most of the time, it will cost you something that you feel like you do not have. In that moment, I was sitting there and the Lord's like, hey, I want you to give the answer. I said, I felt unqualified. It cost me something I felt like I did not have to call that person up. I'm like, Lord, this person's a big, well-known person. They have many huge voices in their life that I've watched from the time I was a child on TV, listened to them on the radio. Like, no, I am not qualified. It cost me something I felt like I did not have to call that person, right? There's been times that I did not have financially, and I was needing financial breakthrough. And the Lord said, I want you to sow this money into this ministry, or I want you to sow this money into this person that you have aught against. As an act of faith that you are forgiving, you're letting it go, as an act of faith that you are trusting God that He is going to supply your needs. And I did not have the money in my bank account. It was that, or it was paying a bill, right? But when I heard the voice of the Lord, I knew to obey the voice of the Lord, because it always comes with reward. So I said, okay, and it cost me something I felt like I did not have. Sometimes I am walking out depression. And in walking out depression, I'm in ministry. And I have to encourage you. And I get up on stages and encourage people. And I lead people into worship when I don't feel like I have worship to give. When I don't feel like I have joy to pour out. When I don't feel like I have hope and faith to give others. It costs me something I feel I don't have. And in the pouring out, God fills me up. In being the answer for someone else, God gives the answer to us. Is this making sense? I hope you are totally catching what I am throwing down. Give, and it shall be given unto you. Pressed down, shaking together, and running over. Give, and it will be given to you. What is God asking you to give? There's so many things He can ask you to give that cost you in so many ways in order to give back to us. Could be that phone call of obedience. Could be that act of faith financially. Could be, whatever God is asking you to do specifically. Then it will be given back to you. Pressed down, shaken together, and running over. I was thinking about this instance where I obeyed the Lord in my waiting for answers, in my surrender for answers, so I didn't stay stuck, right? In my being bowed down in obedience instead of being proud in my, no, God, I'm not calling them. I'm not giving them that answer because I need my answer, right? No, I evaluated myself, self-evaluation, okay? And I constantly ask myself, where are you at? What's your posture? Because your prayers are dependent on your posture. Your prayers are dependent on your posture. You cannot be stuck. You've got to be surrendered. And so in that moment, in giving somebody else their answer because I'm not willing to pray prayers that I'm not willing to be the answer for, right? And sow seeds that I need to see fruit from. I was reminded of a story in the Bible that I want to share with you because it's just so good. And I think sometimes we overlook it, okay? Because we focus on one part of this story. I want to zero you in on another part because I don't want you to think this is just Alyssa's opinion. I want you to see this is biblical, okay? Luke 8, and we're going to start in verse 40. And we're going to read until I feel like we're not supposed to read anymore. Okay, Luke 8, verse 40, it says, "Now, when Jesus returned, a crowd welcomed him, for they were all expecting him. Then a man named Jairus, actually, I always get the names wrong in here, I'm sorry. A man named Jairus, a synagogue leader, came and fell at Jesus' feet, pleading with him to come to his house because his only daughter, a girl of about 12, was dying." Now, I have a 12-year-old daughter in here, so this hits home for me, okay? I have a 12-year-old daughter in here, and I can only imagine what it was like to come to Jesus and beg him to raise her from the dead, right? As Jesus was on his way, okay, so he agreed. He agreed to go help the girl. As he was on his way to help her, the crowds almost crushed him. And a woman was there who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years. Interestingly enough, the woman with the issue of blood had the issue of blood the same amount of time as this little girl was old. The girl was 12 years old. The woman with the issue of blood had it for 12 years, right? And listen to this. But no one could heal her. She came up behind him and touched the edge of his cloak, and immediately her bleeding stopped. "Who touched me?" Jesus asked. When they all denied it, Peter said, "Master, the people are crowding and pressing against you." But Jesus said, "Someone touched me. I know the power has gone out from me." Then the woman, seeing that she could not go unnoticed, came trembling and fell at his feet. In the presence of all the people, she told why she had touched him and how she had been instantly healed. Then he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace." Just pause right there. Her faith has healed her. Not her sitting and waiting on God in a stuck position, but her sitting and waiting on God in a, I'm surrendered, I've got to work this position. She did something that cost her something. Back in those days, you did not go out into public if a woman was doing her thing. Okay, just going to leave it there. So if you are hemorrhaging, you were looked at as unclean. You were unclean. You do not socialize. You do not get around people. It cost her her reputation to go into a crowd of that many people in hopes that she would be healed, because she could have been in a lot of trouble socially. Okay? It cost her something, and her faith made her well. It made her whole. Okay? Let's go back over here. Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace. And while Jesus was speaking, someone came from the house of Jairus, the synagogue leader, and said, "Your daughter is dead. Don't bother the teacher anymore." Hearing this, Jesus said to Jairus, "Don't be afraid. Just believe, and she will be healed." When he arrived at the house of Jairus, he did not let anyone go in with him except Peter, John, and James, and the child's father and mother. Meanwhile, all the people were wailing and mourning for her. Stop wailing, Jesus said. She's not dead, but asleep. They laughed at him, knowing that she was dead, but he took her by the hand and said, my child, get up. Her spirit returned, and at once she stood up. Then Jesus told them to give her something to eat. Her parents were astonished, but he ordered them to not tell anyone what happened. There's so many things that we could dissect in this. I'm literally reading this and I'm thinking, oh, there's a sermon, there's a sermon, there's a sermon. We're going to stay the course right now though, okay? Because we're talking about what it looks like to wait in surrender, in the working of our faith, as an act of obedience that God already did it, not in our prayers of God, you need to work it out, but in our prayers of God, work it out in me because we know it's already done, right? Prayers are not to prove to God anything because God already did it, right? Prayers are to convince us. It's not to beg God to do it. It's to convince us it's already done. Then we got to work it out in our faith. We already talked about all that. But here's a man named Jairus. He came to God. He came to Jesus, okay? And he said, my daughter is sick. She's dying. Essentially, that's prayer, right? Because he came and told Jesus what he needed. And Jesus answered and said, okay, I'm going to do it. Let's go. And started walking with him towards the answer. And in the middle of him walking towards his answer, a woman got her answer. And he had to stand and wait and watch another woman get the answer that he needed for his daughter. I need you to hear me right now. We're talking about the fact that so many times the Lord will challenge us in our faith. In the midst of getting the answer that we need, he will challenge us by giving the answer to someone else and even help us facilitate the answer for them, right? And Jairus, I can only imagine what it felt like knowing that Rory was in a room dying. Okay, my daughter, 12 years old. I can only imagine if I knew Rory was dying and I've got Jesus right there walking towards my house and then another person is getting their healing and Jesus stops the whole crowd to accommodate this healing and to address this healing while my daughter's on her deathbed. I can only imagine the panic. Oh my gosh, no. We don't have time for that. Okay, awesome. She got her healing. Come on. We've got to go get my daughter healed right now. She's going to die. She's going to die. Come on. But it doesn't say he did any of that. It doesn't say he did any of that. It does say that the servant came to him and told him, just forget it. Your daughter's dead now. There's no point in bothering him at this point. Right? And my question to you is, in your praying for the answer and God using you to facilitate the answer to other people while it looks like your unanswered prayer is dying, ooh, will you continue to have faith that God will do what he said he will do? And sometimes it will completely die. The thing you've been waiting for will completely turn over. And it's like, yep, it's gone. I was doing all the things that the Lord told me to do. I was standing in faith. I was sowing those seeds. I was doing the things that cost me something. And yep, that thing just totally got ripped out of my hand. Do you still have faith that God will do what he said he will do? Jesus literally looked at him and said, just believe. I know they said she's dead, but you stood here and you watched the answer facilitated to someone else. You waited in surrender. So just believe now. Are you believing in your surrender? Because surrender is belief. Do you have faith? Are you believing? My question to you today is, I know that there's so many times that we can get bitter and angry as we wait for our answer, watching other people receive the answer that we're praying for. I think sometimes the Lord waits for our response to see how we're going to celebrate with somebody, how we're going to allow it to hinder our decisions of faith, our belief, if we're going to get angry at God because such and such got their answer while we're over here waiting and now my person is dead, now my promise is dead, now my dream is dead because I was waiting for you to do it for somebody else while forgetting about me over here. All the while, Jesus never forgot about you. He was going to work on your thing too, but you got out of belief. See, if Jairus would have said to him, nope, I'm not in belief anymore, sorry, his daughter would have stayed dead. But he did not allow other people getting their answer to make him bitter. This is good word. He did not allow her answered prayer to make him bitter and angry at God while his daughter died. He stayed in faith. That's the correct posture of prayer. When everybody else is getting it, you celebrate with them instead of getting angry. You celebrate with them instead of getting bitter. That's the correct posture of prayer, because if he did it for you, baby, I can celebrate because he's fixing to do it for me. And it may look like it's completely dead right now, but God is not done because he is fixing to move on my behalf. And so Jesus said, let's go. You're in faith, let's go. And he went, and notice he did not let anybody in the room with him that was in unbelief. And that's a whole nother sermon I'm going to go ahead and say to you right now. When you're in prayer and intercession and standing in the gap and doing the thing with Jesus and working your faith, because you recognize I'm not trying to talk God into doing the thing that he already said is done. I'm convincing myself it's already finished. So now I'm working my faith as a partnership with God, right? There are some people that cannot be in the room with you in order for that prayer to see the answer. There are some people that you need to get out of your corner. There are some people that you need to get out of your environment. There are some people that you cannot do life with because they are not believers. They are not in faith. They do not understand the word of God. They do not understand what it's like to stand in the gap, and they are hindering the answer from coming to pass. Jesus literally said in that moment with that dead little girl, he said, everybody who's going to mourn, everybody who's going to wail, everybody who's going to be in unbelief and doubt, get out of this house right now. Because I cannot bring this thing to pass if your unbelief is sticking around. Right? If you've got friends and people and even family that are murmuring and complaining and are just doing all the things opposite of what you are believing for, and you are standing in the gap for an answer, it is time to do some clean up in your atmosphere. Clean up your atmosphere. Cut some ties with people. Bless them and break it off. I bless you, but I cannot stand with you right now because I'm standing in the gap for an answer and you're being a hindrance. I know that God's been answering all these other prayers and you're over here bitter, but baby, I'm over here postured in a surrendered position. I'm not going to allow your bitterness to get me off track, because if God did it for them, God's going to do it for me. I celebrate them. You can go over there and wail and mourn and grieve because you feel like God forgot you, but not me, baby. And I've got to clean up my environment and my company because you're going to hinder the answer for me. Do you hear what I'm saying? When you're waiting for God to answer the thing, how are you postured? Are you going to continue to stand in belief even when it looks like everybody around you is getting the answer and you're having to wait? Are you going to celebrate with them? Are you going to continue to believe and stand in faith even when it looks like it's dead? And are you going to watch the environment around you with the company that you keep? Because your company can keep you from your blessing. We know that right here. Because Jesus said, get out or I can't do the miracle. Right? So that tells us that there's some people that will keep you from the miracle that God said is yours. That miracle was Jairus's. He said, I'm going to raise your kid if you believe. But he said, I can't do this with these people here. So there are promises that are your promises that God specifically assigned to you, but they're not being facilitated because of the company that you are keeping around you. Some people just cannot go where God is taking you. And it's unfortunate. They have the ability to stand in faith and to go where God needs to go. They're making the choice to stay stuck. You don't have to make the choice to stay with them. You can move forward and watch God be God and say, okay, let me be an example of how God comes through, so that hopefully it will be an example to them in such a way it sparks their faith and they get out of that stuck place. Right? How are you facilitating your prayer life? This is so good. How are you facilitating your prayer life? How are you partnering with God? How are you posturing yourself? Are you begging God because you're trying to convince him, or are you realizing prayer is to convince me? It's already done. Now I'm standing in the gap. I'm partnering with God. I'm working my faith. It's going to cost me something that I feel like I don't have. Jairus said, I don't have time to wait. My daughter is going to die. It cost him something to stand and wait for this woman to be acknowledged in her healing. And the servant said, oh, she's dead. You waited too long. It cost him something, the time. Maybe it's your time that's costing you something. Maybe it's your finances. Maybe it's you're giving out. You're pouring out when it feels like you don't got nothing to give. It's cost you something. You're standing in faith and working together with God cost you something, but it comes with great reward. Because he will always do what he said he will do if you will remain in faith, if you will celebrate with those that look like they're getting the answer, and if you will remain in faith even when it looks like it's not being answered. God will always come through. And always check your atmosphere. First of all, where's my heart? Is it bowed or is it proud? Am I placing myself in a stuck position or am I surrendering? And second of all, who's in my company? Because if I'm doing what I need to do to get the blessing, but they're going to keep me from it, baby, bye. Bye. Peace out. Bye. You do not have the right to take my blessing and answer from me. I've fought through hell. I've stood in the gap. I've used my authority, and nobody, no person, no devil, no demon, no situation, no circumstance is going to take away from me what God said is mine. Period. Period. And let me just tell you, in the cutting off of people for a season, sometimes it's permanent. Sometimes it's for a season so that those people can watch God do the work that he needs to do in your life, and then God will restore. Sometimes it's just better to just say, okay, bye. God is going to restore new relationships to me, new company, new people. But biggest thing is, I'm not going to sabotage my answer by making my atmosphere toxic because of the people around me or because of my own heart posture. Do not sabotage the answer by not having the right atmosphere. People or you. Where is your prayer life? Where is your belief? Where is your faith? How are you celebrating others in their answers? How are you being the answer for someone else while waiting for the answer? How is it costing you in ways that you don't feel like you have anything to offer? And watch God do what he said he will do. Yeah, somebody said, if God is a good God, then how come life is bad? We live in a fallen world, friend. Sin came in and tried to destroy everything that God put into place. And because of that, there are consequences in life sometimes that we do on our own, and sometimes it's just the nature of the world that we live in. We have consequence because we live in a sinly, awful, trashy world as far as the nature of our hearts. But the good thing is that when we are in relationship with Christ, we overcome all of those things if we stand in faith. What does the word say? He works all things together for our good. Everything bad, he'll turn it for good. If we trust, if we posture ourselves in surrender, if we continue to celebrate, if we continue to keep our atmosphere right, if we keep our company right, if we stand in belief, God is faithful to do what he said he will do. I hope this encouraged you today. I hope it shifts your prayer life. I hope it shifts your belief system. I hope it shifts the way you celebrate people. I hope it shifts your company. Listen, I do want to say, if you enjoyed this, share this with somebody. Share it with somebody. Send the link to somebody. Leave me a review on Spotify and Apple. It helps the algorithms. It helps this podcast get pushed to people. Hit that share button so people can hear this. And I just hope you'll subscribe. I hope you'll stick around every Thursday, a new episode of All Things Good podcast. You guys come be a part of life with me. I hope you will. I enjoy this every second of the day. We're going to end it like we always do. We're raising a glass to everything bad, because God will make it good. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I want to give you an opportunity right now to go hit the subscribe or follow button. Don't miss an episode. Every Thursday, we are going to be here early morning. We will live broadcast it to Facebook, and it will be on all the streaming platforms and YouTube at 5 and 6 a.m. Central Standard Time. Don't miss this. I hope it's empowering you. I hope it's encouraging you. And I want to give you a chance to partner with our ministry. If you don't know, we travel full time all around the nation. We do worship, we speak, we do conferences, we do pop-up events, we do consulting, all of the things. And we are seeing lives changed forever. We're seeing massive miracles take place, supernatural miracles take place in bodies, but even in hearts and minds and emotions as well. And God has just been so good. There's a couple of ways you can partner with us. Number one, pray. Pray for me and the girls. This is definitely a sacrifice. It is a calling. It is our passion, but we need your prayers as we do what God's called us to do. And number two, I want to give you a chance to partner with us financially. We cannot do what we do on the road without your help. And we just love our partners. You keep our car going. You keep us on the road. You keep us booked up. You allow us to do the ministry that we are doing, and we're just so thankful. On my website, AlissaHolt.com, I'll throw it up on the screen. You can go to Ladder House Co. and read all about the ministry, and you can click to be a monthly partner or a one-time giver. We love whatever it is that you can do, whether it's prayer, whether it's monthly, or whether it's one time. We are so incredibly grateful. God is so good, and you are a part of the harvest that we are seeing on the road when you partner with us. Go check out that giving link. I will put it here on the screen as well and down below in the description, and we will see you next week. Love you.
You are brave in the sky, singing your lullaby. Shine bright in the night, it's in you I delight. And I am placing you higher.